A new threat from the Trump administration to break off SNAP food benefits for Colorado. CU is paying out a big settlement over COVID vaccine mandates during the pandemic. A federal crackdown on rogue truckers after years of heartbreaking crashes in Colorado.
I find it welcome news. There's a lot of bad actors out there.
And for the first time this season, Denver's gonna get it. Impending white doom! Tonight on Next. Just when SNAP food benefits were restored, the Trump administration now says it plans to withhold that food benefit funding from states like Colorado, states led by Democrats, states that are refusing to hand over personal information on recipients that the Trump administration wants. Our Angela McCall explains.
Yeah, Kyle, this has been, talking about background first, I do want to mention this stems as far back as May when the USDA requested that every state hands over this personal information, things like addresses, social security numbers, and immigration status of recipients. The Trump administration threatened to withhold SNAP funding if states didn't hand over that information. And while Colorado and 20 other states refused to and instead sued, saying that request violated the law, a judge then issued a preliminary injunction ordering that the federal government could not withhold SNAP dollars from states refusing to comply. But fast forward to today, the Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke Rowland, said at a cabinet meeting that despite the order, the change could come within a matter of days.
As of next week, we have begun and will begin to stop moving federal funds into those states until they comply and they tell us and allow us to partner with them to root out this fraud and to protect the American taxpayer.
The federal government says they are doing this to weed out fraud, like people who shouldn't be eligible in the first place who are receiving benefits. Democratic Attorney General Phil Weiser said if they do move forward to withhold funding, this would be a direct violation to the judge's injunction, saying that the USDA could not do this exact thing. The Attorney General said in a statement that they will seek additional relief in court to ensure that funding continues. Kyle.
Like so many things with the federal government these days, there's just chaos, right? It's one day it's one thing, one day it's another thing. And for folks who are relying on food benefits, they want certainty, not chaos. Can folks at the state level give them any certainty at this point?
Well, apparently there was no notice, no official notice from the federal government to anyone here in Colorado. That's according to Governor Jared Polis's office, who said that there was no notice to the state of any official plans to withhold funding in its most recent communication. And so when she came out and said this in a cabinet meeting, of course it was shock, panic, confusion.
Yeah, sure,
like, where is this coming from?
All right. Angela McCall, thank you. CU Anschutz Medical School will pay more than $10 million to settle a religious discrimination lawsuit. This is a payout to students and staff who were denied religious exemptions from the school's COVID vaccine mandate. It's a legal battle that's been going on since 2021. There are 18 students and staff at the medical campus who got involved in the lawsuit after they said that their requested religious exemptions from the vaccine mandate were denied. They said that that denial was unconstitutional. The university argued in court that the mandate was meant to protect medical patients. Attorneys for CU have also questioned the legitimacy of some of the religious claims from students and staff. A federal court ruled against the students and staff several times, but an appeals court reversed those decisions last year, ruling that the school's religious exemption policy favored some faith groups over others. So now the university has agreed to pay more than $10 million and to give greater priority to requests for religious vaccine exemptions. CU sent us a statement today saying that they believe that the COVID policy, which has been lifted, was scientifically sound and aligned with federal guidelines at the time. Colorado Springs City Council clearly knows the work of philosopher Kenny Rogers, who once wrote, "You gotta know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em, know when to walk away, and know when to run." Because Springs Council is running away from a fight with the Trump administration over Space Command. Last night, Colorado Springs leaders voted 7-2 to oppose the state's lawsuit challenging the Trump administration's move to put Space Command in Alabama. President Trump announced the move back in September, implied that the decision was largely a reward for his supporters in Alabama and a punishment for Colorado's use of mail ballots. Democratic Attorney General Phil Weiser is suing on behalf of Colorado, saying the Trump administration did not follow proper procedure. Last night, council members in the Springs said that they are worried that this lawsuit could anger Trump and cause more harm to their city.
I've been in several conversations with many congressional leaders that I know are working hand in hand currently with the administration to bring in different capabilities into Colorado Springs. And we would definitely hate that any type of litigation would hinder that process.
It appears that the Republican who represents that area in Congress is also pivoting from efforts to keep Space Command in Colorado to now focusing on future projects. Congressman Jeff Crank says his team has had productive conversations with the Trump administration about future federal projects in that area. Colorado has a long history with deadly truck crashes, so there are plenty of folks here welcoming the move by the Trump administration to crack down on commercial license testing. Here's Mark Salinger with that.
School, they always taught us, got to have your head on a swivel. You're just looking at your mirrors the entire time.
Colorado's mountain roads are notoriously difficult to navigate, especially behind the wheel of an 80,000-pound truck.
Throw in traffic and stops and starts. Yeah, it's a lot.
Strop Maurer owns CDL 303, a truck driving school with classes specializing in mountain driving. He knows how dangerous these roads can be, which is why he welcomes any changes to make trucking safer.
I found the I-70 stretch one of the most difficult. You can't let your guard down.
There are nearly 600 trucking schools in Colorado, but the Trump administration announced this week a crackdown across the country that could put more than 40% out of business for not complying with federal regulations.
So there's a lot of fraudulent trucking schools out there that just have one or two guys. They'll go ahead and say, I'm self-certified as a school, where they're actually not. And then they'll go ahead and turn around and get their guys their CDL. So that's what they're cleaning out.
Last year, the state shut down a CDL testing school in Loveland after an investigation found the program was giving licenses to people who shouldn't have passed the test.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, it's all fake.
In 2022, a man driving without a valid commercial driver's license killed 5 people in Weld County. The truck he was driving didn't have working brakes, and the company contracted by the federal government was delivering mail. And a truck driver on Highway 285 near Conifer killed a man in a crash last year while driving without a valid license and without proper documentation.
When they do that, they're putting everyone else at risk.
Brett Fulton is the president of the Colorado Motor Carriers Association, which represents hundreds of trucking companies in the state. They also support crackdowns on what Fulton calls bad actors.
Part of this is because there hasn't been, I think, an adequate level of oversight throughout the country. And a big part of that is, a lack of resources at the federal and state level.
Colorado is no stranger to bad truck crashes. It all starts with the training to get the license.
So yeah, it needs to be cleaned up.
Something that we've heard for years after doing trucking stories here is that the Federal Motor Carriers Association simply doesn't have the staff or the money to accurately monitor all the trucks on the road. So beyond politics, there's serious hope that Trump will at least provide extra funding that could help clean up an industry that many feel needs more regulation to keep bad actors off the road, Kyle.
Certainly one thread in our coverage of previous crashes is drivers who are in this country illegally. And that's part of the Trump team's concern as well.
Yeah, we've seen that the Trump administration wants to get drivers that don't have documentation or that don't speak English off the road. We've seen specific enforcement for truck drivers in other states. At this point in Colorado, we haven't seen any specific examples, and the industry experts that I spoke with today haven't seen that come to Colorado yet either.
Mark Salinger, thank you so much. A storm's bringing snow to Denver, the Front Range, and the mountains. CDOT hopes new laws will keep I-70 from being such a slip show. We got a hold of documents showing that Colorado's point man on wolves was forced out of that job. But things get stranger from there. And Colorado's tribes get long overdue answers as the state researches a painful piece of history. That's next. Not sure if you have seen the weather forecast, but impending white doom. It's been a long time since we busted that out. Hey, it's about time too, because Denver is long overdue for a proper little snowstorm. Mountains are going to get a bit as well. CDOT's reminding truckers they are no longer allowed in the left lane on tricky sections of I-70 like Floyd Hill and Glenwood Canyon. Truckers will be required to carry chains on I-70 throughout the high country. Get caught without them, it's a $100 fine. And CDOT said today that it is well staffed up for the winter driving season. They're particularly excited about the completion of 2 new employee housing complexes in Frisco and Fairplay.
We've worked hard over the last few years to fill key vacancies, build up resources in areas where it's hard for folks to get there in the winter conditions. Taking innovative strategies like helping to build workforce housing in areas like this one. We've really brought all the tools to the table to make sure that we have adequate resources in the mountain corridor.
So there are new rules for us little people in little cars too. Even if you got 4-wheel drive, you got to have decent tire tread, right? You got to have a depth of at least 3/16 of an inch. It's the old quarter test, If the top of George Washington's head disappears when you put the quarter upside down the tread, then you're good to drive.
Kyle, the kids are calling. They're texting. They want a snow day tomorrow. I'm saying for some areas there's a chance it's probably going to be a delay more than a cancellation, but pretty good storm that's brewing. And in spite of the cloud cover today, it was kind of the warm before the storm at 50 degrees in Denver, but the snow is starting to develop over western Colorado. Temperatures this afternoon a little bit above average, and I don't know that we're going to get to freezing tomorrow. A weather impact alert for cold and snow. Why? During the morning drive, the worst part of the day when you're trying to get to work and school, you're going to have snow, you're going to have falling temperatures and slick driving. So far, so good on I-25 tonight. I-70 looking good as well, but winter driving conditions expected in the mountains all day and in Denver for the first half of the day. 3 to 6 inches of snow expected with heavier amounts to the west and to the south of us. And we're seeing that snow filling in over western Colorado tonight. In Denver, 3 to 6 inches expected by midday tomorrow, 1 to 4 on the northeast plains and 4 to 8 in the Front Range foothills. Winter weather advisories are out for the mountains. A winter storm warning out for the Sangre de Cristos for 10 to 17 inches of snow. Denver will see 3 to 6 with impactful driving conditions from that snow from Fort Collins through Boulder into Denver and south to the Castle Rock area. Snow is slow to form over Denver, but the models have us dry through 9:30 and then filling in around midnight, going all night, going through the morning drive. And then after midday, drier air works in and we see that snow end from north to south. Temperatures will start to drop as we move into the overnight hours. And your 7-day forecast, weather impact alert for cold and snow Wednesday, but then the rest of the week and the weekend looking pretty good. Back to sunshine and 50s by early next week.
Let's invite others in this holiday season. Exclusion and anger are having a moment in America, but we determine our personal values, and this is the season to show them. So let's invite others in. Some of us are called by faith to do that. Faith aside, at a time when people are trying to divide us from our neighbors for power or profit, one of the most meaningful gifts we can give someone this holiday season is just the chance to be included. Sometimes that means a literal seat at the holiday table, but it could be as simple as a kind note, an invitation to coffee, to go grab a beer, any unexpected act of openness and good faith. Now, somebody out there saying, why are you talking about this on the news? This isn't news, right? News is crimes and car crashes and fires. With respect, the chance of any of those horrible happenings impacting you personally is small, thankfully. The chance that you could change somebody else's life or your own with an act of inclusion, that's almost a guarantee, thankfully. And when I see news headlines about people hurting each other in all kinds of ways, I often see people who are lashing out because they feel ignored and isolated and forgotten. Sometimes it's powerful people acting that way. Sometimes it's powerless people. Now, I'm not saying that we can handshake or hug our way out of every problem in the world these days, but if the local news can provide endless opportunities to gawk at the misfortune of others, how about we also provide a platform for hope and connection and inclusion? So this holiday season, I invite you to tell me a story. Tell me a story about how your life has been changed through connection, through inviting someone else in unexpectedly, by being invited in yourself. With your permission and theirs, of course, I would like to share some of those stories in the weeks ahead. If nothing else, to provide a little balance on the evening news, when division is getting a lot of attention. Colorado's top man on wolf reintroduction is getting pushed out of his job, but then you know what? He's getting a cush new state gig instead.
I have an auntie. She's been missing since she was a young girl.
Colorado is confronting difficult history, uncovering the truth about Indigenous boarding schools. That's next. Colorado's controversial Parks and Wildlife director suddenly left his job last month. Now we know Jeff Davis resigned because he was going to get fired. Last month, the state announced that Davis would step down as CPW director and move into a senior policy advisor role in the Department of Natural Resources. But 9 News Investigates obtained a settlement agreement allowing Davis to resign in lieu of termination. It's signed by Davis along with his boss, Natural Resources Director Dan Gibbs. So instead of losing his job, the guy in charge of wolf reintroduction will now be an advisor to his former boss. Also, he has agreed not to sue the state. There's no mention of why Davis was about to be fired in this settlement agreement. But we know that he's leaving as Colorado very publicly struggles to find any state willing to give us more wolves to release this winter. Problems with the voter-approved wolf reintroduction program have plagued his time at CPW. So now the point man on that effort gets canned from his job, but gets a new job advising his old boss. Would love to be in those meetings. For decades, hundreds of thousands of Native American children were forcibly taken to American Indian boarding schools, some here in Colorado. Many of those children were starved or beaten. Some were never heard from again. But now research into that ugly history is happening in our state. History Colorado and tribal representatives are working to gather oral histories, talking with survivors of boarding schools and their descendants to uncover painful details about our state's past. That research and collaboration is actually a requirement under a recent state law. It's work that tribal representatives say is critical but difficult at times. Jolene Holgate's the executive director of the Denver Indian Family Resource Center. She's Navajo. Both her parents were placed in boarding schools, as were others in her family. She says some made it out, others were not as lucky.
I have an auntie. She's been missing since she was a young girl. And from what we understand, we don't even know if she's on the records there, but she was living in that Green River area with a white family, and they said that she ran away, and they never found her.
Colorado's American Indian Steering Committee has been holding listening sessions around the state, talking with communities impacted by boarding schools. That committee is expected to share some findings next spring, along with recommendations on how the state can move forward. Back with your feedback next. Feedback tonight from Joan, who says, I appreciate your plans to solicit stories of connection. I've almost quit watching the national news. It's almost all negative, Joan says. That is not what I see daily in my life. If I could print that and put that on a poster in our newsroom, I would, Joan. That is not what I see daily in my life. Joan says, can't wait to see the stories you uncover. Glenn says the effort is how the airwaves were meant to be used. And then Tom, who writes in, sheesh, Kyle, getting all compassionate, empathetic, and caring about people? What are you, some kind of hippie communist? See you next time.